Good morning. Today I am going to look at the student's essay. You can see printed below. Areas I have highlighted have some problems or need to be improved, so I am going to pay particular attention to these. This essay has already been graded by an IELTS examiner with a grade of 6, which is around 68 in TOEFL. What I am going to do is to both correct and improve the essay to try to raise this grade. If you are listening to this to try and improve your own writing, what I suggest you do is first read through the essay, try to understand the student's mistakes, and think about how you may have answered the question. And I recommend that while you are listening to my talk, you should also be looking at the essay. If you want to see the transcription of my talk, you can do this on YouTube, but I suggest you only do this if you cannot understand any words which I use. The essay is generally quite good, but the mistakes lie in spelling and expression of ideas. A lot of ideas are very unclearly expressed, making them difficult to understand. There are also too many paragraphs, but I will talk about that as we go through the essay. Generally speaking, you only need 4 paragraphs in an essay. The first one for the introduction, then your second and main paragraph explaining your main point of view, third paragraph to give the opposing point of view, and then the final conclusion. So let me reread the first paragraph, incorporating my corrections and changes. Everything has 2 sides in the world, and globalization is no exception. The effects of globalization on the world economy are diverse. The first paragraph, apart from the mistakes in spelling and the structure, it is also weak on content. It hasn't really said any more than that the effects of globalization are diverse. It would have been better if the student had tried to give some definition or explanation of what we mean by globalization. Normally in the first paragraph you should try to define your topic. This is both going to make the first paragraph more interesting, attract higher marks, and also help you to avoid going off topic later in the essay. So we could have incorporated the sentence, for example, in the past countries were often very isolated with their own culture and economy, but nowadays borders are not clear and countries are all part of a global system. Moving on to paragraph 2. This whole paragraph is really very unclear. I cannot understand what the student is intending to say. The word payment, I'm not sure if that is payment or another word, which makes it very difficult to understand the student's idea. The spelling mistakes are easy to correct. Therefore in line 2, payment in line 3 if that is the correct word, and consider in line 4. But this does not really help me to understand the point of this paragraph. So let's move on to paragraph 3. Paragraph 2 is talking about negative effects of globalization. So whatever the student is intending to say, it should be part of the same paragraph as 3. So paragraph 2 and 3 should be one paragraph, which are talking about the negative effects of globalization. So paragraph 3, if we take the Eurozone, for example, the economic changes caused by globalization are huge, or caused by the globalization process are huge. Many companies have transferred their factories into cheaper production areas to compete in the world markets. The result is rising unemployment rates in the old industrial countries. So in these two paragraphs, 2 and 3, we can see that the writer is making the main negative point in regard to globalization, which is that industrial countries are losing jobs to developing countries. But he could have gone into this in more detail. The essay would have been better if he had included some examples. So here is an example. Manufacturing companies in Europe nowadays are struggling to survive because they have to compete with production in countries like China, where the cost of labor is far cheaper, many firms have had to close down, resulting in a massive loss of jobs, period. Let's move on to paragraph 4. Reading out the sentence again, including my corrections and changes. In regard to other countries on the world market, such as China, this job transfer is a big opportunity. No one can deny that this is an enormous advantage for the less developed countries and is enabling their economies to flourish, based primarily on the availability of cheap labor. The last sentence in paragraph 4 is in the wrong paragraph. The previous part of the paragraph has been talking about advantages of globalization, but this one is talking about negative effects of globalization, environmental problems, so it should really be in paragraph 3. Also, it hasn't given any detail about what environmental problems we are looking at. One of the main problems I can think of is in countries like China. There is enormous pollution caused by factories, but it's not clear whether this is related to globalization or just the lack of development in these countries. So I think talking about environmental problems here is really going off topic. Moving on to paragraph 5. Now this paragraph is also talking about advantages of globalization, so it should be part of paragraph 4. 4 and 5 should be one paragraph, and paragraph 5 should not begin with nevertheless, because that is showing contradiction with the previous ideas. So let's change this paragraph to there are other positive effects resulting from globalization. There is a remarkable new tendency to think globally, people are more willing to learn languages and get educated about other cultures. Furthermore, countries formerly regarded as undeveloped, such as India, are getting the chance to be leaders in some fields. That is quite a good paragraph in terms of the ideas it is expressing, but again very unclearly expressed. Okay, moving on to the last paragraph. The first sentence is okay. Starting from the second sentence, the understanding of economic processes has changed completely. It is important to think in bigger terms, not just about your own country. The next two sentences are not really very clear. The last sentence says that the world should be balanced. So I think the student's idea here in these two sentences is that globalization is good, but we need to be careful of the negative consequences. So let's change these last two sentences to clearly there are many positive benefits from globalization, but we must be sensible, comma. We should look for a balance between economic development and protecting people and the environment. Okay, with the changes which I have incorporated, the essay should now get a much higher grade. Let me remind the student to rewrite the parts I have changed, making sure that he understands these changes. And thank you for listening.